Cole.
Look at that. Camera's on.
I love
impressed.
it. Yeah. Show us your smiling faces. Be totally present over this next hour together. I love it.
So much more fun looking at faces than talking to names.
Yeah. Some familiar faces, some familiar names. Nice to see everybody.
Well, Tegan's letting everybody in the room. We just had excitement at our office. We had a fire alarm. We all locked outside in the 100 and whatever degree heat it is here in Phoenix. And
yeah,
boy, yay.
You can't always control everything.
That's absolutely true. And then Apple Pay is having trouble today.
Oh,
what
boy.
is this world coming to?
One of those days.
Wow.
We're going to turn things around now.
That's right. Well, we're super glad that you're here today. I see a couple of you typing in the chat box where you're coming from. Puerto Vallarta. That would be a fun place to be.
Sounds tropical.
Sounds tropical. Yeah. Maryland. Where else are you guys from? Type in the chat box. Let us know where you're coming from. We're excited about the content today from Gary Keller and the CEO Summit, which was right before the mega camp.
That's right. Yeah. It couldn't be a better time to have this kind of conversation, right? We're approaching the fourth quarter. We all know this is when we start planning for and doing the activities around 2024. So great time to sort of reset the field.
Yeah, exactly. And especially, I'm sure most of the people on this call probably are either looking for talent or have looked for talent in the past. And Gary really gives us an insight today on the big mistakes that CEOs have made regarding talent. And, I saw a couple of them on here, and I think you and I discussed it at Mega Camp that even you and I have made.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, I'm guilty of definitely some of the mistakes we'll be going over today.
Yeah. So we're super excited. Looks like we've got more people in. Oh my gosh. Long Island, New York, Maryland, DC, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, New Jersey,
Romania.
Wow.
We're going international.
Look at that, Joe. You're already international.
There we go. All right.
So today we wanted to talk to you about Gary's 12 people mistakes that CEOs can make or have made. Allegedly Gary may have made a few of them himself.
Sure.
But we know we certainly have.
Yeah. Why do you think this topic is so important, Kristan? What is possible with the right people and what is the alternative? And I know we're going to get into the details, but just sort of high level, why is this topic so important to you to talk about?
Well, whether it's expansion or whether it's running any business, any team, you can have absolutely the right systems in place, checklists, systems, everything. And if you don't have the right people, it's not going to work.
Right.
Conversely, if you do have the right people and the systems aren't perfect, it'll work.
You can get them better and people will give you more grace with that connection.
Yeah. So that would be one reason. The second reason this topic is so important and timely right now is because with the real estate market as challenging or
changing as it is,
if you don't have people skills, if you can't make those connections and connectivity with people, it's going to be a challenge for you.
Sure.
And having the right people around you on your team or in your organization or in any business is going to be the game changer.
Is it fair to say you're seeing a lot of team rainmakers and leadership making personnel changes right now, decisions?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, because you've lived it with me, in the last 60 days, we have either hired or top graded 13 people in our organization.
Yeah.
So, and we're not unusual.
Right.
That is happening because what people are waking up and realizing is my life is not going to get better until I have better people.
Yeah, that's powerful introduction.
It really is. And you and I have discussed it too, because if you don't have the right people every day, you're going home and either telling a friend, telling your mom, telling your spouse, and you're talking about that person way too much.
Their name keeps coming up.
It keeps coming up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's just jump in.
Let's do it.
It's such a timely topic. So we're going to go over 12 mistakes today. And the first one is not always looking for talent. So what do you think Gary means by that when he says, well, our problem is we're not always looking for talent?
Well, it means that as a leader of the organization, we're always prospecting for future leaders in our organization. It was matter of fact, I actually learned this from you, Kristan. The night I met you, you showed me the talent list on your phone, and what you were showing me was that you're always interested in having conversation with talented people, whether it's the right fit right now, whether the timing is right, does not matter. Always engage in conversation with talented people because you never know when it will become the right opportunity.
Yeah. And I think Gary would say most of the time we're making accidental hires.
Hmm.
We're not being purposeful about it. And he said, just like buyers and sellers, that we have got to be just as purposeful about recruiting and people.
Sure.
And so it makes sense. But what most of us do is we wait until we're in a whole lot of pain.
Yeah.
And then we go try to make a quick hire. And then we all know what the cost of a bad hire is. It just makes it worse. And then, so you're either going to put the work in the front end or you're going to put the work in the back end, but you're going to put the work in.
Right. Yeah. And just as far as the cost, I know we know it. It's not just the time. It's not just the money. It's the emotional bandwidth in the continuity of your team,
right?
Which are harder to quantify, but those things do matter.
They do. So most people always think about the tangible aspect of
right.
it, but there's so many intangibles that most of the time is a bigger dollar sign.
Yeah.
So if you haven't taken career visioning, we just got done teaching 30, 60, 90 and success or others. Looking for talent and making that part of your lead gen is really critical to build a great organization.
So what does this break down to practically? Just, engaging in deeper level conversations with real estate agents, leadership around, attending events like Mega Camp, Family Reunion. Mm-hmm. Like when you go to those type of events, what is your strategy going into the event to make sure that you talk to as many talented people as possible?
Yeah, the truth is that probably the best nuggets coming out of those events is the people I'm talking to.
Right.
Because you're always looking for talent. And so whether or not you get into business with them then or later on, I met you at a conference.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
And I was
serendipitously.
I was eating something and you were telling me your piece and I just was like, okay. And I took a picture of your badge. It was kind of just nonchalant, right? But I do think the value is that we have to get out of the mindset of, oh, I need someone to hire right now. And we have to get into the mindset of talking to talented people. As you know, I put them in my phone. And then when I do need to make a hire, I start calling them all.
Right.
Because it may not be for them, but I really am looking for who do they know that it would be for?
Who do you know that I should know?
Exactly.
Classic referral script.
So we just have to decide if we're going to be business people, we have to always be looking for talent, just like we're always looking for buyers and sellers.
I love it. I love it. Good little shift in our focus as leaders to always be prospecting for talent.
And then number 2, he says mistake that people make is they don't hire killers.
These are Gary's words.
These are Gary's words. Yeah. A lot of times we accept, oh, this person will do, they'll be good enough. And he said, if you want to have an incredible organization, then you really can't maximize the potential of that organization unless you really probably hire a killer like you. If you're a killer, you're going to need more killers.
Right.
And just how important that is. And he also talks about, you want to hire a killer that is highly skilled and has integrity. Because he says if you hire a killer who's highly skilled with no integrity, they will kill you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But killers are, he just said, you've got to hire for integrity because otherwise they'll kill your business. He said, I have done this to myself in the last 5 years.
Sure.
So he said, hiring a killer is important, but they've got to be a killer with integrity.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way I sort of define my interpretation of what he means by killer is somebody who's going to get the job done, who's going to put forth their best effort, who's going to master and take charge of their specific role on the team.
Yes. It's, that graphic going from I to we to they to their. We're talking about the their people.
Yeah.
The empire builders.
Right.
You can. An empire builder is always talented, but not all talented people are empire builders. When he talks about killers, he's talking about empire builders.
Right.
And he said, most likely they're just like you, the rainmaker.
Right.
And so, Michael Jordan, his coach, Gary asked Michael Jordan's coach, who was at the conference on stage, he said, who was more aggressive and who was more committed and obsessed, you or Michael? And he said, we both had to be equally obsessed in order. So it doesn't matter whether it was another, because clearly that coach was Michael's part of his team, but that guy had to be just as obsessed as Michael. So what he's saying is, Gary says, people, if you're a killer, you better have killers around you with integrity.
With integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 3, hiring people that need to change.
So this is a mistake to hire people that need to change.
Well, or thinking that you can change them. Kind of like when you get married.
I can change this person.
You can change this person. And he said, people can change, but you cannot change them.
So this might be a combination of both their personality and how well you get along, and on a more practical level, their skills, and certainly there's skills that can be developed. However, things like the KPA help us find people's natural behavioral style, natural strengths,
Right.
and we're looking for alignment for the role, and their specific strengths.
Yeah, and it was funny because Gary said business is easy, people are hard. And he said, you know, if you hire a talented killer with integrity, you don't have to change them. So just go. He just kept saying, "Go hire more killers."
Right, right.
So if you think about that, sometimes we hire somebody and like, oh, even in the first 30 days, we're thinking they're going to be okay. Well, if you're already thinking that,
That's the honeymoon phase.
right,
If it's
right,
already mediocre,
right,
good point.
it's not going to work. So he just said. He also said if you hire killers, you don't really have to manage them.
Right, because that's what you made me think of just a moment ago. Motivation is another thing where it's like, I know that I've been guilty as a leader of like, I know I can motivate this person. I know I can pull out the best in this person. I know I can get them to do more. And if they don't want it for themselves, that mindset's eventually going to kill me. It's going to drive me crazy.
It will drive you crazy.
Yeah.
We all, it's natural. Probably the majority of you on this call have felt this way. And that is, you want it for them more than they want it themselves.
Yeah.
Gary says motivation is just the mere entry to being in his world. Like that's just that's just the minimum standard to even be considered, is you've got to be a motivated person. And he can't motivate you, and you can't motivate your team either.
Good opportunity just to say, the career visioning process dives deep into the person's motivation.
Yes,
that's exactly why it's part of the process.
Yeah, it does. It really does. So it's and that whole course is brand new. I've taught it once since they came out with it. It's amazing. If you haven't taken it in the last 2 months, the new one is out and you should go take it.
Career visioning for hiring talented people.
Yes, absolutely. Number 4, waiting for replacement. So this is another mistake. Rather than getting rid of the bad apple, they keep them until they can find a replacement.
Why do you think people keep them longer than they should?
Because they think it's better than nothing.
Right.
And the truth is, you don't see until after they leave that better than nothing was doing a lot of damage.
Right.
And then there's a lot of cleanup work.
There can be almost like a mental challenge of, if I have a vacancy, then I'm the one that's going to get all this extra work in the short term.
Right.
So I can understand and appreciate the hesitation, but to your point, the longer they're here, in some cases, the more damage they're doing, the more cleaning up you're going to have to do once they leave.
Yeah, exactly. And so, Gary would say, don't wait. So he says, don't judge me on who I hire, but judge me on who I keep. So his point is, I'm going to make the decision quickly if they're not the right hire.
That one's worth writing down.
Yeah.
Don't judge me based on who I hire.
Judge me by who I keep.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But think how many of us keep people way too long just because we don't want to have to go through the process of rehiring. And if you follow the 30, 60, 90, that the chances of that happening are so slim.
Well, and here's another domino effect that creates a challenge when you keep somebody that's, let's just say, weak in their role, is then the other people who are on the team now have to pick up their slack.
Yeah.
And now we're extending ourselves even more, stretching ourselves even more to make up that gap. And that can lead to resentment or frustration or just overwhelm.
Well, you and I have experienced that here in the last 6 months, where we had exactly that situation, right? Where we had one person that wasn't pulling their weight, and it really made it was a strain on the organization.
Exactly.
Everybody else have to pick up the slack.
Exactly.
So yeah, don't wait. Get them out.
Reference back to point number 1. If you're always looking for talent, you have that list, it's much easier to address number 4.
And it's also why we cross train. There have been times, where we've asked other people to step in while we went and found the right person. And Tegan's even on this call, and she had to step in for 6 months. Remember?
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's why cross training is important, so that you aren't so reliant on that person that you're willing to just accept whatever they give you.
Yeah. Yep. I love it.
So what else do we have here? Number 5. Failing to help people grow. Gary says the number one lid on our business is that you're not growing. So your people aren't growing. And when top people aren't growing, what do?
They find another environment where they're going to be able to grow.
Exactly. So the mistake is failing to help their people grow. And how that happens is you stop growing as a leader.
Yeah.
We see that. We see that a lot. And I shouldn't say a lot. We see that in some market centers across the country where, the OPs are just tired and they're just not growing anymore. And it's really hard to attract talent to that atmosphere.
Right.
And so if you're not going to lead and grow your people, then step out of the way and let someone else, because otherwise you're not going to keep the people that you've got.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah.
And for me, that's why I get up every day.
Let's talk about this a little bit more. Maybe some examples. So like, I feel like with a brand new agent or, a barely producing agent, we all kind of understand what it means to help them grow. Let's talk about the seasoned agent that's on my team that does 20 million. They're happy financially. Where might I find some opportunities? And then also I think about like our staff, our admin team, right. Same question.
So I just got done teaching Success Through Others, and there's really 3 big concepts in there. And one of them is seizing opportunities to consider for your other team members who do want to grow. Here's what that means. I'm just going to be shooting in the dark if I've never done the motivational piece on you.
Right. As far as what I want, what's going to keep me.
Right. But once I know that, then I can be watching for opportunities that come up that might be in alignment where I can help you with it. Either you're going to borrow on my influence or maybe my money, and you're going to put in the time. Right.
So what you're saying is you're willing to take on a new business opportunity, not because it's right for you, but because it's right for the talented people in your world that you want to keep.
Right.
And that's a huge leadership lesson right there.
Yeah. And just remember, not everybody in your organization is going to want more opportunity, but you need to be prepared as the leader for those who do, so that you can be looking for those opportunities that might be exciting to them. Because here's the thing, let's just say, I mean, that's already happened between you and I. You've done some things in the organization. I've supported you to do some things exactly the same in other organizations.
For sure.
But if something came along and I thought it might be something that you would be that it would interest you, typically you're not going to be expecting me to put in all the time. Right. You're just expecting me to allow my world to be bigger.
Right.
So you might borrow on my influence, or I might lend you some money. But when I was younger, I had all the time in the world and no money and no influence.
Right.
Right.
Now you've got less time, more money, and people like me who have time.
Exactly. Right. So I think sometimes people think, I don't want to take on another opportunity because this could be so much work. No, if you're finding an opportunity and you're seizing an opportunity and you're just looking for whether or not that would be alignment, like if you said today, I want to go buy a McDonald's, I'd be like, Joe, I'm out. I've never ran a McDonald's.
Right.
I know it has great systems, but I don't want to manage high schoolers.
Right.
Right. But if you brought me, because Gary says, it's always the right time to buy the right piece of real estate.
Yeah.
If
amen
you
to
brought
that.
the right piece of real estate, or if I saw the right piece of real estate, I might come to you, Joe, and say, hey, with your hard work and with your buddy's hard work on the weekend, I bet we could do X, Y, and Z. We should run the numbers and see if this makes sense.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
We're
it's a win-win for both of us.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
So I think that, helping people grow depending on where they are in their life journey and also where they are in the talent spectrum means different things.
And where you are as the leader in that journey.
Right.
Right. Like you said earlier in your career, time wasn't an issue, but money was.
Right.
Now it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And so being self-aware enough to know, what do I have to offer right now with a new opportunity? Is it time? Is it money? Is it the ability to attract the opportunity? Yeah. And then should I proceed forward? Who else is going to bring what else to the table?
Yeah. And, I think it was Jason that said it. And he talked about the wisdom of somebody who has been in this business for a number of years, and then the energy of younger folks who don't have the wisdom. What a great match that can be.
Sure.
And so I think of it also when you think about this growth trajectory. It also can be that I help you avoid mistakes in opportunities that you maybe would stumble into had I not had the wisdom to say, run it through the business filters. This might not be a good idea.
Which has literally happened.
Yes.
Yep. And the McDonald's would be a good example of that. Number one, you know me well enough to know that McDonald's actually is in alignment with my long-term goals.
Right.
And even if you were unsure, you could ask me the right questions to help me self-discover whether or not it is in alignment with my goals. And obviously in that example, it was not.
Right. So, and we're going to show you something in a minute. Yes, it's a shameless plug for this reason. I kind of go around the world every week and I coach some really, really, really large teams.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are struggling right now, to be candid.
Sure.
And this is, hard work. And we have a class. So just breathe a second. We have a class, Scale Your Business, whether you're scaling up or scaling down. And a lot of people are scaling down right now. A lot of rainmakers getting back in production. But here's what I'd say. I've done this a long time, 40 years. Gary has entrusted a lot of different projects to me over the time, over those 40 years, or over the last 15 that I've been with Keller Williams. And this class is once a week for 8 weeks. You and I teach it. And we're not talking about the typical lead gen levers or the typical value propositions or the typical, what to say right now to get people moving towards you. The radical concepts that we're talking about are always super disruptive. And what I would say is, don't take our word for it, take our numbers for it. Right now, anywhere in the country, most teams that I'm coaching or I'm aware of,
or even brokerages.
Yeah, 20 to 45% in unit count year over year.
Right.
And we're up 10%.
Right.
Which is not easy to do in this market.
For sure.
But I 100% believe it's because of the way Gary Keller has taught me to critically think, which I also have passed on to you by sitting next to me for 4 years.
Right.
And we know we're going to do lead generation. We know we're going to do, some sense of marketing or et cetera. But the question is, with the market of the moment, what does that look like? How do we get people moving towards us? How do we help our people start produce at a higher level, even in this market? That's what we're going to teach you how to do. Very disruptive concepts that Gary has taught me about business. Everything we're going to teach you is about business.
Yeah.
Whether it's real estate or not. So if you have any side hustles, this would be good for that too.
So would you say it's fair? It's fair to say that regardless of your production level, whether you're getting going, ramping things up to build a team, or maybe you're looking at your expenses right now and you're deciding it's time to cut some expenses, kind of regardless of where you are on their production, it's still a good call.
Even if you're a solo agent, honestly, I only wish that I had learned some of this a long time ago. It would have helped me tremendously. I think Tegan has typed in the chat box. I think we've got some discount for everyone today because of the people that are on our webinar. Anyway, I'm not trying to sell you. I'm trying to give you, Gary says, anytime there's a problem, run right smack in the middle of it and you'll find opportunity. We're trying to show you an opportunity in the middle of a problem that the industry is having.
Right.
And give you the critical thinking skills that I've learned from Gary.
Well, I just want to touch on one last thing. You mentioned a second ago, the ability to help people avoid mistakes.
Yeah.
We're moving into uncertain or changing markets, right? Which means things may be uncertain. What better time than to follow a leader who's gone through several recessions, several market changes? Think about the time and money that could save in comparison to just struggling through the next 6 or 12 months and hoping for the best.
And Gary talks about that too. Don't go chase a shiny object. Find a proven leader who has done what you want to do and go follow what they do.
Makes sense.
So moving on.
Jump back into the mistakes.
Mistakes. Oh my gosh. Number 6. Buying into say versus do. And Gary says at the end of the day, words are cheap. You've got to have results. And you and I have been around people, and I'm sure all of you have too, that know all the right things to say. They sound great.
Yeah.
But the execution is just lacking.
Right.
They just can't get the results. Now, I asked a young man in Toronto, Canada yesterday. I said, if you had to put a number on it, how much more activities are you having to do to get the same results?
Mm-hmm.
And first he said double. He goes, no, triple.
Wow.
And then he said, and about 35% of all of them I'm actually putting under contract are falling out because credit is tightening.
Wow.
And so I said to him, he goes, so what do I need to be doing that I'm not doing? I go do more of that.
Yeah.
So, people are feeling it all across the country. And what I would say is, if you're somebody that can say whatever you want to say, but there's no action or no activities behind it, it's going to be tough, because there's going to be people like him that are going to go get it done.
Right.
So
yeah.
Words are cheap.
Another thought on this is, in order to really start modeling this for the people that you lead, think about the 30, 60, 90 onboarding process, and how part of what we do as leaders, and when we're having those 30, 60, 90 conversations, it's very much focused on activities and results. It's not an emotional conversation. It's rather, what did you do? What did you get accomplished? What were those results? And so we can start modeling that conversation at the very early stages of recruiting and onboarding, so that when we do have to confront somebody on our team or have a tough conversation, a fierce conversation, we're focusing on the results, what actually did or didn't happen, not, I feel like you're not trying.
So it's almost like having a performance review every week.
And why not have a performance review?
Absolutely, because an annual performance review is a snapshot in time. Using the 411 will help you find more people that want to get things done, because you'll quickly be able to say that their audio is not matching their video.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we've got to have people that actually want to get things done, AKA killers.
That's it. Right. These are all connected.
These are all connected. Yeah. So they're fun though, too. Number 7, failing to inspect what you expect. That just won't happen if you're doing a 411. And what I find is, even today on our call, one of the gentlemen said, I'm not doing it consistently. So if we don't inspect what we expect consistently, we're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Really fast personal example. I failed to inspect what I expected for a little bit too long, because number 6, I was buying into what the person was saying.
Yes.
Not buying into what they were actually doing.
Yes.
I failed to inspect it. And when I finally did, I realized the hole they put me in was much greater than what I actually could have imagined. The amount of time and effort it was going to take for me to fix all the things that needed to be fixed was 10 times what it would have taken me to check in along the way.
Right.
Tough lesson learned the hard way. Learn from my mistake and avoid that.
We have all learned that one.
Yeah.
We all have.
Yeah.
And also, when you talk about inspecting what you expect, we're not just talking about quantitative. Those are numbers. So here's my example. You could be hitting all your numbers, but you're such a jerk that you're getting 1-star reviews.
Yeah, fair. Right.
So it's qualitative and quantitative.
Right.
So, you have to be inspecting both. That's why, we do inspect our reviews, because it's not just, did they get the job done, but did our clients enjoy the experience along the way?
For sure. And for the people that are part of our team that want to succeed, back to number 5, if we fail to inspect what we expect, we're also failing to help them improve and to grow in their role. It may not be a lack of effort. It may be a lack of skill or understanding. And by inspecting, we can help them develop their skill and understanding.
Right. And that also just gets back to helping them learn how to critically think. So they understand that there's a domino effect to some things. And so trying to begin with the end in mind, like, this is what I want to happen. Yes, I want to achieve this results. And I want the people to have such a great experience. I get referrals. That means back here, it's not just about getting it done, but it's also creating the experience.
That's right.
So it's qualitative and quantitative when it comes to inspecting what you expect. And we do that through feedback from our clients. That's right. We're inspecting if people are living the 4Gs or not by inspecting what's coming in on the reviews.
Right.
So it's not just the numbers.
That's right. Yeah, good point. Qualitative and quantitative.
Number 8. Not letting the goals be the bad guy. I love it when Gary says, I can love you, but my goals may not.
So just to clarify, this is a mistake. So another way of saying that would be, let the goal be the bad guy.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So the mistake is not letting the goal be the bad guy. So then you end up in an emotional conversation with a teammate instead of a business conversation, or of an evidence-based conversation, which typically is way less emotional.
That's kind of what I touched on earlier. That was a much more eloquent way of saying it.
So we want to make sure that we do let the goals be the bad guy. So if they're not performing, we're not having a conversation about a personality or anything to do with emotion. It's about getting the job done.
Yeah. Joanna in the chat box asked about the 4Gs. Those are our core values as a team. right? Grit, grace, growth, and give. So Kristan just mentioned that a moment ago. Those are our team's core values. Yeah, good question.
Yeah. So if we get surveys coming in that say, they're not in alignment with that, then we know we're not walking out our culture.
Right. And on the other end of the spectrum, when we see these words or these concepts showing up in our feedback, we know our agents are living into that culture.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So number 9, propping people up. You could also talk about taking pieces of the job back. And basically what Gary's saying is, what's great about this being your job is it's your job. You've heard me say this so many times. And it's like, if you start taking pieces of the job back, it gets messy, and I feel resentment if I have to do it. And so what I say now is, if I have to do your job, then why do I need you?
Right.
And the reason I say that is because Gary Keller said it to me. He said, if I have to tell you how to do your job, Kristan, why would I need you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So don't prop someone up. Now we're talking about the rule, not an exception. Sometimes there's emergencies and we do have to help people out, but we don't want to start taking the job back permanently.
I'm wondering if, like, does how do I say this? When I think propping people up, could that also mean like not inflating their ego too much, not telling them they're doing a better job than they are, or like not giving them the attaboys if they're not truly deserved, being willing to say attaboy over here, and are you open to some constructive feedback over here?
Yeah, I think it can be that too. Because that sets up a whole nother set of issues if you are overly generous with your attaboys when they really haven't earned it yet.
Right. Overcompensation, over bonusing, over time off. And then they become they feel like they've earned it, and now I expect it.
Yeah, very much. They can very much become entitled, and that's really a slippery slope that you don't want to go down.
Yeah.
It's very difficult once someone becomes entitled. And I made that mistake one time. I had a buyer agent who literally walked in, hadn't sold real estate before, and sold 63 houses his first year.
That's a pretty good year.
And the first 3 years, he was just a killer, right? And all I did was talk about how great he was, right? All of a sudden he walks in one day and he feels entitled to, and he had a laundry list of all the things he felt entitled to. And that was that. And so part of it was my own fault.
Sure.
Because he didn't get there by himself.
Sure.
He got there with a team leading him and helping him. And how you know that to be true is then he left the team because I would not give him those entitlements, and he got out of the business. He sold 2 houses in 4 months and then went back to Canada.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I'm not saying we were the be all end all, but the point was I should have couched his success with the success of the team instead, and made it about the individual. And then he felt entitled.
Yeah.
That was a big mistake.
That's an important lesson.
Yeah. Number 10, failing to listen your way to success. So think about that, failing to listen to your way to success. We talk about all the time, it's better to learn to ask great questions rather than tell.
For sure.
And then you've got to listen to what they're actually saying, not coming up with your next question that you're going to ask.
Right.
And think about this, even if you're in a room having dinner, the person that's just telling becomes obnoxious. If you're the person listening and asking questions, all of a sudden they love you to death.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So I would think Gary just wants us to understand that the person who asks the best questions is the person who's going to win.
Yeah.
They ask the best questions and then they listen.
Right. This reminds me of, I think it's in the book Fierce Conversations, where the example is you take a colored beach ball. We all know what I'm talking about, with the colored stripes. You put it in the middle of the table and you ask everybody around the table, what color is the ball? And everybody has a different answer because they're all looking at a different side of the ball. And the idea there is, as an organization, when you're looking to improve and to streamline and to scale, the employees who are in it day to day, their perspective matters.
Right.
Their opinion on what would be more efficient, what would be more effective, what is practical and what is not practical. We want them to voice their opinions, be part of the decision-making process. Not to say they make the decision, but they voice the decision. We listen to it. We seriously consider what they're saying, and then we decide how we're going to move forward together as a team.
Well, that's because authorship is ownership.
Amen.
So when we allow them to be part of the authorship, they own it versus you owning it all.
Yeah.
And that makes a
Perfect.
big difference. So when you said that, I totally agree, because when you tell them what to do, it's not nearly as good as walking through it with them.
Yeah.
And creating it together, because that authorship means so much, especially the bigger your team gets.
Right. And typically talented people have no shortage of opinions, right? They're going to tell you what they think if you ask them.
Yeah, they are. They are, for sure. Number 11 kind of is an interesting one, running on personality gas instead of organizational gas. And I think this is a really common mistake a lot of us who start selling real estate can fall into, is really running it on our personality based on, rather than running it around models and systems. And a lot of us don't put those models and systems in place until we're hitting the ceiling.
Right.
We can't do anymore because we've really based the whole business just around us and our personality. And you need to make it about the business, not about your own personality or your own reputation. So make it about models, goals, systems. That really will keep you out of that highly centralized, all about me.
Right.
Because that's not scalable or expandable.
And that's the point, right? Or the organizational gas is scalable.
Correct.
Nobody knows your personality on the other side of the country, but they know the results your organization gets through the model and through the consistent results year over year.
Right.
Your personality is not why people are still choosing to do business with us. It's the organization's results.
You go to McDonald's in Rome, you're still going to get a Whopper or a Big Mac or whatever it is.
Right. They might have a different name, but it's the same thing.
You're going to get the same hamburger.
Right. Yeah.
Although in Rome, you do get beer in McDonald's.
Interesting.
So weird.
Yeah.
Not that I've been there, but allegedly. Yeah. So thinking about it being scalable, especially if you ever decide you want to maybe step back a little bit. If it's all about your personality, that's going to make it really difficult.
Good point.
To step back at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Or have a saleable business.
So, Kristan, is this maybe a good time? We've been cruising along. Do we want to, I know this is kind of an interesting time. Do we want to maybe just hear from our audience for a second? What questions or thoughts are coming through? You can use the chat box or raise your hand if you want to come off mute. What are you hearing that's making sense that you can use? What can we clarify? Anything that we've covered so far on the 11 mistakes from Gary Keller? Going once? Anybody at all? No comments?
I think like these are all awesome, right? I mean, everything in here is amazing. I think that looking at the one that really got me as far as like questioning would be, you guys had said it's not on here specifically, but about don't judge me on who I hire, but who I keep. And I think too, like we have to be careful with that because sometimes we're keeping people because we see something that maybe others don't see yet and we're working on things. And so I think it's okay, to also consider that side of it as well.
Yeah, I love that perspective.
That's true.
Yeah, because our employees or whoever, they have their own perspectives. They're going to judge, I don't like that person, right? Why is he keeping them around? They're no good, but they might just be a little jealous or, just don't quite understand the project or the goal.
That can be very true. That can be true. I would say it's more the exception, but I can think of exceptions where that absolutely was the case.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. Very helpful.
And also it's for a time, just as an example, when there's a lot of disruption in business and you need to shake things up, you bring in a very different leader than somebody who's going to manage the status quo. So it may be that you have somebody in your organization right now, like this gentleman just suggested, because it's the right person for right now, but maybe it wasn't the right person for 2 years ago.
Right.
And so people might question it, like, this makes no sense to me. Well, maybe you haven't lived through a down market before, but I've lived through 6 of them. And, sometimes just like when they brought in Jack Welch to completely revamp General Electric, it's like he went in and did radical things. Now, was he the person to manage it long term? Not really. So just understand that sometimes a leader may bring someone in that doesn't make any sense because it's what's needed right now.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Not maybe not forever, but it's what's needed right now.
Timing matters.
Yeah, it does.
That's a perfect segue into our second reminder here.
So again, we've already explained to you what this is and why we think it would be important to your business, but everything we've been talking about, and last week, we talked about the 7 most important strategies that we took out of Mega Camp. And when we went back and really looked at it, and we had, I think, 3 bonus items, so I think there were 10. 8 of the 10 came from the summit, which was the CEO summit the day before Mega Camp. And so a lot of people that were at Mega Camp would not have heard those things. So I just think just being able to keep business simple and yet disruptive enough that nobody can take my business away from me. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to go take some of yours.
Sure.
That's what matters right now. And that's that disruption in really everything that we're doing, whether it's attracting talented people, buyers and sellers, are protecting our database. It doesn't matter. If you want to be disruptive and you want to be a killer, you probably want to take the class.
Yeah. And my one comment on this, and what I love about this particular structure is it's 1 hour per week over the course of, is it 7 or 8 weeks?
It's 8 weeks.
8 weeks. And so why I love that format is because we're going to talk about a concept and we're going to follow a very sequential order over those 8 weeks, giving you a week in between each call to go and investigate,
right,
make decisions, and implement new changes with your team. And so by the end of those 8 weeks, you're not just going to have learned a bunch of great ideas. You're going to have actually made a noticeable change in your business.
And they're all recorded. So let's say during those 8 weeks, you have a vacation or you're in bold or whatever. You can watch the recording with your team.
Yeah, good point.
And you can do it for up to 60 days after the course ends.
What a great leadership team building concept.
Well, especially this time of year, you're getting ready to produce, your business planning, producing your GPS, there would be nothing more important, in my opinion, than taking this course, which foundationally goes over all parts of the business that need to be in place for 2024.
Love it.
Okay. Number 12, leading from me go versus we go. And Philip, our director of marketing, he asked me, is this
a typo?
Is there a typo here? Like, no, it really, and what Gary is saying is don't build the business just around you. That if you want a business that's sustainable, the business has to be built on a vision, not on your personality, so that we have chosen to go together versus me go and everything's it's just most important for me. And this one's a real important one to Gary. He says, build it around a model, build it around a win-win comp plan, and then just go help people succeed and hit their goals. And when you do that, the people in your life will want to go with you wherever you're going.
Makes sense.
And so he calls it we go. Is it we go or me go? And he said, far too many of us are really caught up in me go, meaning it's all about me. It's all about what this business will do for me. It's all about, if I sell 10 more houses, what this is going to do for me. And it has absolutely nothing to do with everyone else.
Yeah.
And he said, so that's a really big mistake, is leading from that perspective.
That makes sense. Because if you're trying to inspire me and help me see the vision, and all you're talking about is yourself or why you want it, then it may be hard for me to see my impact or my involvement or why I should stick around.
Right.
But when it's about that sort of all-encompassing vision, you're right. That's authorship creates ownership. I'm part of the vision. I'm part of the conversation. Now I help own my role in helping us get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Owning that piece of your role that's going to help us get there.
And that's really the difference between, in my opinion, delegation and leverage, right? It's really easy to delegate a checklist to a virtual assistant who can follow a series of steps every time. That's different than training leverage into your business, right? Training somebody and making sure that they understand your vision and the way you think, such that they can make day-to-day decisions without having to run them through you every single time. Now, obviously, that's something that's earned over time, but that's an important distinction between I delegate a task and leverage is created and built over longer periods, which truly provides you the ability to take some things off your plate.
Yeah, it does. And I just want to go back to, because whether they said it in so many different ways. Gary says you need to surround yourself with killers. With integrity. I also heard, Tim Grover say you need to not just be interested, you need to be obsessed with winning. And then I heard, Molly from Molly's Game talking about, and you need to be obsessed with your business so much that you know the details and the personalities of the people that you work to such a level that she was able to make millions of dollars with just 10 players.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not about the masses as much as it is about, well, there's another gal on stage and she had 4,000 people in her database, but she made $100 million last year with 50 people that she was super tight with, did ladies night outs with, really cool events. Because she woke up every January knowing she was going to have 100 transactions, because you can't stay in her group if she doesn't have 2 closed transactions from you from the year before.
Mostly referral business, I would assume. Obviously,
So,
50 people aren't buying that much real estate.
Right. So no, so she knows that at a minimum, if she just focuses on those people, like Molly focused on the 10 poker players,
Right.
that she's going to wake up and knows 100 transactions are coming her way one way or the other. So, it's they were just all really, and so I say that's being obsessed with your clients. That's being obsessed, whatever your narrowed focus is. I heard narrow your focus, consistency, and exclusivity.
Yes.
So how can you make what you do exclusive? And that's really part of creating a disruptive mofer.
Yeah, that's something our team's been very focused on, I'd say, over the last 6 months to a year. And we'll definitely be covering, I think, in either session 4 or 5 of the scale class.
Yeah. So questions that we can answer. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Questions that we can answer for you today about anything at all that we learned from Mega Camp and or the CEO Summit that you would have questions about, or anything at all.
Yeah. Any comments? Anything you learned today that really resonated? Anything we can clarify?
I see a lot of our fellow realtors that were at Mega Camp. I see Laura on there from Oregon. See Cindy Flowers from the East Valley. Look at all my friends. It's fun.
Kristan, Cindy wants to know, you mentioned exclusivity as it pertains to events and your database and your VIPs. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah. How can you make them feel, what is it? Make me feel important, I think is the cliche. How do you make them feel important? It can be anything as small as this, Cindy. Last year during football season, do you remember when we did the pizza delivery thing?
Yeah. Yep.
So all we did was pick your top 10 people in your database and call them and say, hey, I'm coming over to your house today, Cindy. I'm bringing you a pizza. I know you're probably going to be watching football or doing something fun with your grandkids. Would you like cheese or pepperoni? And we made it simple, right? And what we found is when our agent stood at the door and had a pizza in their hand, it was almost inevitable every time that they were invited into the home.
Right.
Right. Which builds more connection. And honestly, then people started saying, well, gee, how do I get into your VIP club? So it doesn't have to be some big ladies' night out. It just has to be, are you making them feel important? Do they feel special? Do they know that they're part of your VIP group?
Right.
So I just want to repeat that it doesn't have to be something huge. It does have to be meaningful and a way for you to connect at a deeper level.
Awesome. Yeah. Herman said, amazing points, all the mistakes I've made. So yeah, I can appreciate that. And then Bree says, what is your favorite place to find killers? Or where's your favorite place to find killers? People that you know or new people?
Where I feel the most comfortable is where I find killers.
Say that again?
Where I feel super comfortable.
Okay. Is that new people or people you know, and or what does that mean?
I'm tongue in cheek because if I'm around people that I'm comfortable with, I know they're all killers.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
I'm slow, but I got it now.
Yeah. So for me, it's usually being introduced by other killers, because killers hang around killers.
Talent attracts talent.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So when I'm at, it's like Gary says, it's not mini camp.
No, it's mega camp.
It's mega camp. So at mega camp, just being able to be around bigger thinkers. I mean, Laura, I don't remember what her, how much market share she has doing really great events in her town of like 11,000 people. Your business, but I can tell you this, she's narrowed her focus to that one thing.
Yeah.
Doing incredible events in her small town to where she just like crushes it. Don't try to be all things, all people.
Right.
And so this was the other takeaway. if you're going to narrow your focus in real estate to one or two things, why not narrow it to something you love? Like if you don't like people very much, you probably don't want to be having events. Right?
Yeah, right.
If you love internet leads, great. So he said, most people never stop something they love. So if I'm going to be in real estate, what I immediately started doing is when I could afford it, was getting things off my plate that I didn't love.
Right.
So I'm still in love with real estate because I do the pieces of the business that I truly enjoy, which means I'm never leaving it. And you only leave things that you don't love. So if I were you and you were wanting to think this year, I would think around it a couple different ways. If I'm going to do lead generation, I might as well do it around something that I absolutely love. You'll feel my passion. They'll feel connected to me. And so what would that be given the market that we have that I would feel super comfortable with? And I think, when you're someone like, and I keep using Laura as an example, she's been the queen of events and farming like forever. My guess is she likes people, because if she didn't, she probably wouldn't want to do those things. So that's what I would say is not only narrow your focus, but make sure it's something that you love. So you get energized by it.
That's right. Lean into your strengths.
Yes. So you're never going to see me. I'll be quite honest. I've never made an expired phone call in my entire life. I've never called a for sale by owner. I've never done an open house. You guys are probably looking at me like, what are you talking about? I built my entire database around my entire business around my database and around my client parties. That's it. Because that's what I love doing. So why am I going to go try to force myself to call a for sale by owner that's going to hate my guts? See, that's already my programming, right?
Yeah, right.
Like,
case in point.
Why go do stuff I don't love? So
right.
Super, when you think about our narrowing of our focus, it's all around our database, our events, and getting more referrals. That is how we have, between any year, 72 to 77% of all of our business comes from that one thing.
Yeah.
We looked at it a month ago.
Yeah. Well, and that creates predictability and consistency in your business. And the one thing I would add to Bree's question, where do you find these killers? Keller Williams events. I've never gone to a family reunion or a mega camp and not left there with several high-level contacts and new relationships that I want to follow up with and establish relationships with. That happens every single time, right? The MAPS coaching community, coaching skills camp, becoming a KW instructor, all of these KW classes, you're going to meet the cream of the crop. You're going to meet the people in the organization across the country that are most serious about advancing themselves and advancing the company. So go to those events, interact with those people, and make those connections.
Yes. And I was just thinking about like the last few people that we have hired. I was just thinking they have all come from meeting them originally at those events and then staying in touch with them.
That's right.
So are there any other questions we can answer before we wrap up today?
I don't see anything in the chat box. We appreciate everybody's time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, just as a note, this MAPS promo around the 12 mistakes that CEOs make, the people mistakes, it will be on the MAPS YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and rewatch it, also the one that we did last week on the 7 strong strategies that from Mega Camp is also on the MAPS YouTube channel. So if you want to go watch that, if you missed it last week, it's up there available for you. And of course, if ever we can answer or help you in any way and avoid a lot of mistakes that we made along the way, we're happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for your time today.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.